that went down here in the 1970s, as though it never was today in this century. But don't care how they try to tarnish these historic memories, I will always remember the roaring 70s. Tell them to write down this one here in the pages of history. 21st of April, the year of our Lord, 1970. Looking back on that era, I see changes that took place politically. Who left this party to form that party, and who embezzled the oil money? Some conscious black men and women, the system make them crumble and bend. And now the nation gone right back to Europe on a western trend. Trinidad, a very funny way of forgetting their history to them like that to me nothing. The history that went down here in the 1970s, as though it never was today in this century. But don't care how they try to tarnish these historic memories, I will always remember the roaring 70s. Tell them to write down this one here in the pages of history. 21st of April, the year of our Lord, 1970.
Good evening, Trinidad and Tobago, and welcome to Our Independency, right here on I-95.5 FM, live on Our Independency's Facebook page as well, so you can join us there, and Rise Maximum Radio's Facebook page as well. I'm sure they are up, and we are ready. Good evening, Natasha.
Good evening, Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome to Our Independency. This is part 4 of our Military Mutiny 1970 series, and we're very excited to share what the content that we have for you this evening.
We'd like to thank all those who went before us and passing the baton until we got to this point. We take you up till 8 o'clock and then followed by the Anglican boys. Now, we are really happy once again to have had dug a deeper hole, also if I should use, for want of a better term, or pull off another layer of 1970. And as we keep saying, we hope that you all are being educated by this. We hope that you have your children listening, and you know the saying, we don't have to repeat it over and over. Those who forget their history are doomed to repeat it. So we've had a number of interviews gone, and we have a lot of interviews to come still after just planning to do one program. But we did not want the curbside under the tree discussion about this. We wanted to get it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So today, the spotlight falls on the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard.
Indeed, and we will hear from two gentlemen this evening. The first is 515 Patrick Andre, retired as lieutenant, and he was at Tetron on that fateful day.
But he was at Stobles, actually.
At Stobles, sorry.
Yes, he was called out to Stobles
on the 21st of April 1970, and he does indicate some things that we hadn't heard before, and I'm sure you haven't either.
Yes.
So it should be an interesting listen.
Yes, and he also give a step-by-step account of from the first phone call he got about the march in Port of Spain to when the Beaufort started flying. Now, also, we've had the pleasure to sit with Rear Admiral Richard Kelshall, who had a lot to say.
Oh, yes.
And where were you in 1970? I was just 10 years old. These people we interviewed served their country, started serving their country from the early 60s. And I remember while serving, I was called before he was captain at that time. Well, he was CEO of the Coast Guard at that time. And strange, I was called before him, myself and another sailor, for a disciplinary matter. And that was the first and last time I saw him. Until last week, Natasha and I had the privilege of sitting with him, going into the compound where he worked. The first compound we went on, where we were tested by that gun that they point at people to make sure that they cleared to enter a building. And so we were tested by the security, and courtesy the assistance of Chief Petty Officer Delano Henry. Delano, we want to thank you so much. Another unsung hero of the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard. And we sat with Richard Kelshall, Rear Admiral, and we have him in four parts this evening. And he gave a detailed account of a lot of things.
Yes.
Now remember, we are presenting to you testimonies of this event. We were young, we knew nothing. Even as a soldier, I didn't know anything.
No, I was not wrong, and let's get that clear.
So we now getting to learn about this
Yes.
situation, and we
Yes.
hope that you all will learn some more
And
as
value
we
what
go
you
along.
hear from the people who were actually there. And remember that this is their account. So if details don't match up to what you know, that is simply a result of different individuals having a different perspective on an event. And that is normal and natural.
That's right. And as I said, if someone runs into this room here and snatches something and runs out, three of us will see three different color
things.
t-shirts. So we have to bear that in mind.
Yes.
But this is the account of these gentlemen. So where were you? And where you think our country should be, you do the comparison. All we ask you to do is be a third eye for these gentlemen we are about to present here this evening. Walk through with them. Experience it with them. And we will try to, of course, elaborate on that experience. So, without further ado, we present to you 515 Patrick Andre, who retired as a lieutenant from the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard. Welcome to our independency.
I am 515 Patrick Andre. I joined the Coast Guard in January 1966 and retired as a lieutenant. Before I get to the actual morning of the 21st, when the first marching took place in Port of Spain, the 26th of February, my wife was working at the Royal Bank of Canada in Independence Square, and she called me immediately as the marchers entered the bank, and I relayed that to the commanding officer, Commander Bloom. And from that day, right up until the 21st of April, we all were kept in, all the officers, everybody, all the men, stayed in camp in Stobles Bay until like 6 o'clock or after, when everything died down and so on. So on the Monday, the day before the 21st, I had to be excused for staying in because I had a dental appointment. But when I was leaving, I was told to look out for a call in the middle of the night to tell me what to do. And so said, so done. I got a call, it was after midnight, from the XO, Laurie Goldstraw, telling me to report to Stobles Bay for 4 o'clock in blues, action working dress, which I did. Got down to Stobles Bay, and we were all coming in, and they were bringing in the detainees and all that. So when I got there, I was told what was going to happen, the state of emergency. They gave me a handful of men, of fellas mostly of my own department, which was the technical department. And we had the old weapons. We didn't have SLRs or Brownings or anything. We had the Enfield 303, the revolvers and so on. But we weren't very heavily armed. And we were told to go to Shaga Cabana, stop all vehicles entering, see who in it, and let them come in but do not let anybody go out. So as I was there now from 5 o'clock in the morning, I was there with my little group of men, and vehicles started to come in of the soldiers going to work. Major Christopher came in. I said, "Morning, sir," saluted him. So he said, "Paddy, what are you doing out here this hour in that dress and without a weapon?" I said, "Nothing, sir, just routine exercises and things, training stuff." So he went in and found it rather strange that I was told there's going to be a state of emergency declared any moment, and he didn't know. Then Mike Bazi came in. I said, "Hey, Paddy, how are you doing?" And I said, "Okay, man, Mike." He said, "What's happening with you all? What you doing out here this hour?" And so on. I said, "Just an exercise, man. No, nothing to worry about." And he went in. I said, "But that is very strange." So I called down to the base and I spoke to the CO and I asked him, "Listen," I say, "Major Christopher don't know what's going on. Bazi say he don't know what's going on." I say, "Something going on, sir." He said, "Yes, Paddy, so hold your fort there." So after a while, letting in the civilian workers, the government civil service workers, they asked me what is going on. I said, "Nothing." I couldn't tell them that a state of emergency was going to be declared. After a while now, I started to hear the boom, boom, boom of the gophers and small arms fire. I said, "But what the hell going on there?" So I stopped everybody from going in now, mostly soldiers, stopped them, took them out of their vehicles, put them to sit on the road by Shaka Cabana and had my men guarding them. And I went into Sharapana and called down to Stoble's base, spoke to the commanding officer, and he said, "Paddy, do not let anybody in or out. Just hold the fort. Anybody who coming in, keep them under guard there." And I did that. Now, we ended up with about between 12 and 20 soldiers who were sitting there under armed guard. And even the intelligence officers of the regiment at the time, Sergeants Keith and Robert, they were coming in and I had to put them to sit down there so I couldn't tell them what was going on. Because I was friendly with both of them. And bullets firing, gophers going off, hell bent down the road. And I said, "Well, what is going on?" So then now, it started to get closer and closer. And I got a message to leave the seat, to set in a boat for me, a small boat, get my men out of there, dispatch the soldiers. And then, before I had time to get the little boat to come and pick us up, I heard a shot fired very near to me. And one of my men saying, "Sir, sir, sir, look out, sir, look out, sir." And when I looked, there was a soldier with an SLR in his hand coming towards me. Well, I pointed my weapon at him and told him, "Drop the weapon or I will shoot him." And he started to shiver. And I told him, "Drop the weapon or I will shoot you." And I told my man with the rifle, I said, "If he twitches, shoot him." So the fellow realized I was very serious, put the rifle down. I told him, "Lay down on the ground." They came and removed the rifle and searched him. He was clean and he was trembling. And I put him aside there to sit down. And I told him, "Guard him, watch him." Well, eventually I put him in a vehicle going to Stoble's with a couple of our people. And he went down to Stoble's and they carried him out to one of the vessels. I think it was Poland. So eventually now, the little boat came to pick us up, but the boat wouldn't fit all of us at one time. So I told the guys, "Okay, you all go ahead. Give me the SLI. I will stay here and watch hold the fort until the boat comes back for me." They said, "No, sir, we're not leaving there alone." And all of them jumped out the boat. So I said, "Well, listen, we can't all stay. We can't all go. Half of you all go, half stay." And we did that. So when I got to the vessel, I saw the soldier. And he came up to me and he said, "Sir, thank you very much for not shooting me, sir." I said, "But what's wrong with you? You've come in there, your SLR is loaded. What happened?" He says, "Sir, I only joined the army last week as a bandsman. I have had no training whatever. I came from the orphanage and I have 1 week and they stick this rifle in my hand down there and they say we're going Port of Spain." And he just ran. He ran from Petra to Stoble's Bay, just kept running. So I said, "Don't mind, son. You don't worry that. You're okay now." So then now, when the bullets were firing now, and the bus was in the way and all of that, and Private Bailey got killed and so on. When they retreated, after a while, we heard the ambulance coming along with siren blowing. I was still ashore when the ambulance came by. And they told me, "Do not fire on the ambulance." And we let them pass. When the ambulance reached Port of Spain, word came back to us that they found them at the Port of Spain General Hospital and the police stopped them and searched them and found a lot of arms and ammunition on board the ambulance with dead Private Bailey lying on top of it. So they held them. Later in the day, I was asked to go ashore with no weapon and go up to Crow's Nest up the hill for the release of the civilians. But I must carry no weapons. That's one of the conditions that Shah and they laid down for the release of the civilians. So I went up there unarmed, and when I got up there now, I saw a certain senior Coast Guard officer talking to Shah and Lasala, and they said, yes, so well, what do we do now, sir, and asking him things. I was shocked. This officer left his position, came ashore on his own, and went up there without authority, without any authorization, and was talking to these fellows like, this is what we plan, man. What happened here is that the army felt they could have passed the Coast Guard without any resistance. That is the only conclusion I can draw here. And how this officer was relating to these people, I say, see that, I keep it out of that one. So eventually, I supervised the release of the civilian people, and as a part of God, the party Mr. Andrew, why didn't tell us this? I couldn't tell all anything. I'm sorry about that. Civilians were escorted out, put on vehicles, and sent on their merry way. And then every night, I will go ashore with a small group of men to hold Stoble's Bay position. We'll be there in the night. Well, we had proper arms by then. I had an SMG, we had SLRs and everything. And it was uneventful until, well, once or twice we heard rumors they were coming. But we were prepared to defend ourselves right there by Stoble's Bay. A few nights later, I was there, and next thing, I saw car lights coming up the road from Shaka Cabana end, coming in. So I alerted my men, and the place was pretty dark. We didn't have much lights on at all. And I stopped the vehicle, went up there with my weapon ready, and it was job served. But I didn't know what was going on, that he was allowed or told to come in and thing. When I saw it was a salute, I said, excuse me, sir, but what's your business here? And well, he started to get on in a haughty way. Don't you know who I am, young man? This and that and the other. I said, well, sir, nobody told me you were coming in, you know. So I called back to Commander Bloom and said, yes, let him go in and so on. But other than that, it was pretty uneventful. However, I want to say something I don't think was ever mentioned by anybody else, which I was aware of, and I'm not sure many people were aware of. The first one is, there was no way that convoy was going to get into Port of Spain. They were not even going to get to Shaka Cabana, because as you leave Shaka Cabana and you come around the corner with the hill against one side, sees the other side. There's a large culvert, about 100 feet or so around the bend. And we had packed that with explosives, all the explosives we could lay our hands on, and really crammed it up in there. And a sailor was on watch there with that plunger, and they stayed there right through until the rebels surrendered and they were escorted out. But if they had gotten past the bus, the order was to blow up that road entirely, and would have blown that road to Kingdom Come and the hill and everything. So there was no way we were going to allow the convoy to pass. The second item I want to talk about is that there is no way the famous Carl Gustav anti-tank weapon that they had would have hurt us in any way. We knew that the Carl Gustavs could not have fired at us. Therefore, Commander Bloom, who knew that, he was able to tell the Trinity and the Golden Bay how close they can get to shore, and they were within range of the Carl Gustav, so that they were safe, because we knew it could not fire at us on the ships. The other thing I want to mention too, Commander Bloom used to go up to Prime Minister's residence every day to meet him, and when he come back, he will tell us, well, he used to tell me, because I was one of the more trusted officers, and Colonel Ken Barnes is there. So he was brought in as the chief advisor, along with some other military officers. And they were there with Prime Minister right through the whole thing. And in fact, at one of the meetings, well, they used to bring in Stanley Johnston as well in the early stages, but he didn't have much to offer. And they told him what he should do is issue orders to split up the three mutineers, Charles Allen Bass. On the Tuesday, one was supposed to go to police headquarters as a liaison, one was supposed to go to Tobago, an assignment, and the third one was supposed to go Nelson Island. So they knew beforehand, they had intelligence that these three were going to do something when the state of emergency was declared. And the other thing too, that I don't think it ever came out in public, but two military officers from Trinidad and Tobago Regiment left Trinidad on vacation to go to England, and they ended up in Cuba, and then came back by a roundabout route as well. And Colonel Stanley Johnson never knew that. And two of those fellas were two of the mutineers. So it was not, in my book, it was not just a simple mutiny because of the lack of the leadership and all the other unprofessionalism of senior officers and all that. And that is my account of what I know, what I saw, and what I heard. The Coast Guard knew from beforehand, one, when the state of emergency was going to be declared, the Army didn't. Two, we knew that something was going to happen when the state of emergency was declared.
Right, so that was the account of his experience. That was 515, Patrick Andre, retired as a lieutenant from the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard. And again, some of the things he said here, the other interview had some similar accounts. And this is why he was one of the callers who called when we had part one, I think, and some people told me that we had him on too long, and some said that we cut him off too quick. But we knew what we wanted to do. You see, people who have this kind of testimony, you can't take them on a phone call during the program, because they'll have to either stay too long or cut short what they have to say. He couldn't say all of this when he spoke to us, so we kept in touch, and he gave it, and we want to thank him very much for his take on what they experienced that morning. One thing I would like to let you, these are at that age when you just joined the work, you're talking about 18, 19, 20 for the most. And you know, for young men and women to experience these type of events at that age, that is what you call, you know, throwing you into the deep end.
Yeah.
And
it just shows too how prepared they were as well to handle those tasks assigned to them, and in contrast how unprepared some of the leadership was, both in the regiment and the Coast Guard at the time.
If you're just joining us, you're listening to Independency, and we are recounting the events of the 1970 mutiny. This is part 4, and you just heard from 515 Patrick Andre, retired as a lieutenant, and we ask you have any messages or any comments, write it down, or you can send us a message on our Facebook page, our Independency's Facebook page. Good evening, Batch. Thank you for reporting for duty, and happy Mother's Day to all you mothers in Trinidad and Tobago. Happy Mother's Day.
Yes.
Pardon our manners, we forgot. Krista, thank you very much. Michelle, thank you also for joining us. And arms for the boys. That was said to the arms in the ambulance.
Yes, this was repeated by several persons, and at least 3 that we've spoken to. So I want to believe that, you know, it's accurate.
So this is why some people saying that this wasn't just about a mutiny.
Yeah.
That's why there's a confusion.
Yes,
you know?
Yes. But as I said last week, I believe, there were a lot of people doing their own thing, they were on their own beat, trying to prove their own point individually. There seemed to have been not consensus in terms of what everybody was going to do. So I guess, you know, some people, things fell through the cracks, and I think that's one of the incidents that was done, perhaps with or without the knowledge of Shah and LaSalle. I don't know.
The underground explosives. No, this was substantiated by Thursday, and we're going to talk about that in a little while. But we visited the Military Museum.
Yes.
As you know, Gaylord Kelshall is the one who set up that museum. Trinidad and Tobago, the only thing I have to say is awesome, amazing. You don't know what we're sitting on in Chagaramas there. 52 sections, and Natasha and I was taken on a walk through time. World War I, World War II. You talking about every weapon or sword, or every
armed conflict that Trinidadians were a part of is represented there.
And it's Gaylord Kelshall set that up.
Yeah.
Linda Kelshall and Natasha trying to keep it going. It's not open right now, but we'll talk about that later. It's too much of an amazing, but they substantiated the part about Gaylord stuffing the explosives. Now, this is for those of you who in the work and just joined the work. We're talking about when you're going into Stobbles, about 200 meters from the sentry post was around that area. So even if the regiment had gotten past Stobbles Bay itself, that was the final option to blow the road, and they would not have got past there. They would have to swim the rest of the way or walk. So it was the Coast Guard really got themselves together in quick time.
In advance, because as he said, everyone was called out to duty on that morning.
Yeah.
So everybody was in camp, reported for duty, and got the instructions.
Exactly.
So they were prepared for something to happen.
So again, the Coast Guard had the act together, and as one person said, if they had gotten through, we would have had a different history right now. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we're going to hear from, and remember, we ask any serving member of Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force, please ask them to tune in. As a matter of fact, the Protective Service, because all arms had a part to play in 1970, and there's something else too I want to let you all know. So please, serving members, this is your time to listen. That museum, amazing. We'll be back.
This is reality radio at its best. Eye on Dependency on I-95.5 FM.
Agricola Credit Union introduces its new Marabella office at Palmer's Mall, Marabella, next to Bright Ideas. Get all your services at your convenience. Deposits, withdrawals, loans, paydays, letters, all for your convenience. Come speak to our friendly and courteous staff or call 219-7745. Become a member today. Membership open to all public officers, their spouses, children, parents, and siblings. Agricola Credit Union, your very own, working for you.
Yes, girl. Online here with this weirdo named Larry. I'm getting rid of him now. Let's take a selfie. It looking good, boy. I putting it online.
Hey, I thought you say you went to the beach with your parents.
Who's you?
It's me, Larry, from online.
Hi, my name is Tanir Kane, trauma survivor and trauma-informed care expert from the state of Maryland, United States. And you're listening to Eye on Dependency, where every life is a biography on I-95.5 FM, Trinidad and Tobago.
You're listening to Eye on Dependency with Garth and Natasha. Reality radio at its best.
Right, thank you for staying with us, and already we have someone, giving their take on what was said by Mr. Patrick, Mr. Andre, but that's what he saw, Texter, and remember, we're presenting a balanced view here. We're just bringing the information to you, that's all right, so thank you very much for making your input, and now, get ready to be taken on a journey by Rear Admiral. As I told you, he was commander of the Coast Guard at the time I first stood before him. Now he's retired, Rear Admiral. So it's 506, Richard Kelshall. And just like his brother, he made a significant contribution to the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard and to Trinidad and Tobago. Let's hear his account of what happened the morning of 1970. First, he's going to give us a little something that we would have missed. I didn't know about it either, something in the Gulf, how we described it. But you hear it.
Battle in the Gulf.
Battle in the Gulf.
Pirates that he was sent to deal with.
He was sent, as a young sailor, he was sent to deal with a pirate that was giving people hell on the sea. And that prepared him for what was to come. So, without further ado, 506, Richard Kelshall, retired Rear Admiral.
My number is 506. The numbers in the Coast Guard were different to the Army. They started at 500. 1963, the 9th of September. So I was the 5th officer in the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard and the 1st officer cadet. All the rest were short service officers and Royal Naval people that were brought. I had a kind of normal career, except I spent a lot of time as the ADC to the Governor General as a very junior officer. And so I worked with Sir Solomon Hochard, and that is where I learned Trinidad, and like going to a university, who was who, and ministers, that kind of stuff. And then I was returned to duty in Stowell's Bay. And when I returned there, I became the first lieutenant of the HMTS Trinity, which was one of the Vosper fast patrol boats we had acquired. A significant affair occurred during 1970, which I will mention because it puts a lot of things in perspective for me. And that is, there was a pirate operating in the Gulf of Paria. And it went on for months and months and months. And the heat and the public came up to the Coast Guard saying, what are you all doing about it? This man was shooting fishermen, stealing their engines, robbing nets. He was a terror in the Gulf of Paria. And the pressure mounted on the Coast Guard to do something. But we couldn't find this man. We looked everywhere. We patrolled. We never found him. And then one evening, a fishing boat arrived at Stowell's Bay. And the fisherman said, the pirate in Pelican Island, which is one of the 5 islands. And the commanding officer, Commander Bloom, said to me, take a little Boston whaler, a little dinghy boat with 2 men and go up there and just check it out. And I drew weapons and we went up, 3 of us. When we arrived at Pelican Island, there were 2 men in a boat and 1 man was up on the islands with a pair of binoculars, observing a set of Venezuelan traders going back to Korea. And just from the whole appearance, I knew that was the pirate. He was about to attack that set of traders and steal all their goods. And the 2 men were waiting in the boat. So I told the men in the boat to stop. They wouldn't stop because they didn't understand English. And they just start up the engine and take off. But I knew he was there. So I put my attention there. I fired at them, but no heroes. I didn't hit nobody. A boat bouncing in the ocean, you can't hit nobody with a gun, especially a submachine gun. Anyway, I went up on the island, and while I was climbing up the island, I came under fire. And this man was shooting at us into the boat and in the sea. It's the first time any Defense Force officer came under live fire. And it was a significant moment for me because I experienced this live fire coming out. In effect, I failed. We ran out of ammunition and the man was still there with his weapons and the boat was there and the boat turned to come back to pick him up. I had 2 more SLR rounds, which the sailor had. I took away his weapon and I fired at the boat and both went okay. And the boat went back to Venezuela and left him there. But we had lost because those 2 rounds were the last and he was coming for us. So I had a flare and I fired off a flare and people drinking in the yacht club bar saw the flare and called Commander Bloom. And the moment they called him, he knew. And it was like a movie. The whole Coast Guard came out of the sunset and the man was captured and whatnot. But the reason it's significant is the fact that I was under fire. And that put my head in a certain space because I didn't know what was coming next. So there we are. That brings us to April the 21st morning when the country was put on a state of emergency and the Coast Guard officers were told to be there at 4 o'clock. I reported at 4. I have to tell you, I've never been so scared in all my life. We knew what was going on from what we had been seeing and hearing, and I was saying to myself, not even the whole army and us and the police could stop what was going on. And so I was very, very scared. The first job I had was to go to a classroom with 1 sailor, and the police had brought all the leaders of the Black Power movement, and they were put in a classroom. And I was told I was in charge of them, to keep them there and quiet. And I sat in the classroom with them for about an hour. And as time went on, they became more and more militant and frightening. They started to tell me about the trees that I would be hung on in Woodford Square, and what they would do to my family, and what people like me deserve. And then one of the more militant got up and he said, "Little boy, give me the gun." And I have to confess, I was frozen. I had with me a young recruit who had just finished training. And as the man approached to pick up my gun, he took the rifle and the bayonet and stuck it under the man's chin. And he said, "If you sneeze, I'll blow your head off." He was so frightened that you could hear the magazine rattling in the rifle. But that incident made everybody sit down, and not a word was said after that, because they realized we were serious. They didn't know I was scared, but they knew that that young sailor was so frightened he would shoot anybody. So that is how my day started, in a very frightening way. A little later on, a car drives into Stobles Bay, and then Captain Spencer jumped out of his little sports car and ran. We were in the yard in Stobles Bay, and he said, "They're coming, they're coming. We have a mutiny in Tetra." He was bleeding from his hand where Rafiq Shah tried to shoot him, and he held the SLR with his hand and pushed it up, and the flash guard burned all the inside of his fingers. So his right hand was raw, and he had driven over the hill and arrived in Stobles Bay. He said they were coming, and Lieutenant Commander Mervyn Williams was the captain of the Trinity, and I was his first lieutenant. And he turned to me and he said, "Kelshall, put your ship at action stations, we're going to sea." So I ran back to the ship, we put the ship at action stations, and he came running down the jetty, jumped on board, and we went round to Tetron. While we were in Tetron Bay, he told me to open fire. And I asked him what target, and he said the bunkers are somewhere up in the back there. Fired the bunkers, because we had heard that they were trying to open the bunkers to get ammunition out. So I opened fire with the Bofors 40-60 weapon, which looks insignificant, but it's an anti-aircraft weapon, and it fires 120 rounds a minute, 40mm round. They were fitted with what is called a Gray's nose fuse, because it was anti-aircraft, which meant it would hit the thin skin of an airplane. That would activate the fuse, and when it got inside the plane, shrapnel would fly in the plane and mash it up. So we were flying over Tetron Bay, up to where the bunker was, trying to create a feeling we in charge here now, stop the mutiny. It didn't work. All that happened was there was mass confusion, and soldiers started to run everywhere. And then he said, "All right, ceasefire, this is not working." A crop duster, the pilot who was already airborne, heard on the radio there was something going on in Tetra. And he flew that crop duster about 20 feet above the hillside, going along to see what was going on. And the entire set of troops on the hillside opened fire. And it was only by his skill as a pilot that he came out with the airplane riddled with bullet holes and went back the way he came. But when we saw that on the ship, we say, "Saul, you're still bad? We're going to show you what's bad." And we let loose with the Beaufort on the hillside. And this time, it was not me. They had Captain Bloom and Mervyn Williams, so I wasn't scared. Boy, did we fire that gun. We fired it so much that we had to pick buckets of water from the sea to cool the barrel. It was so hot. And the trees were just flying out the ground. We nicknamed the gun after that and called it the lawnmower. And an officer swam out from Tetron Bay to the ship and spoke to him. While that was happening, a boatload of sergeants trying to get out of there came out, and the boat capsized right alongside the ship, and a couple of them were drowned. Coast Guard men dived overboard and saved these two sergeants, and we pulled them up on board. We came right back to Stobles Bay, and as a result, I think, of what the officer told Mervyn Williams, he just disappeared. We know now in hindsight that he went up the hill to his house where he was living and went down to Tetra. At the time, our Coast Guard aircraft was alerted way early in the morning and was circling on top Tetron Bay watching, and he reported to our headquarters there was a convoy, and that the convoy was forming up and about to leave. This information came to our ops room and was told to Commander Bloom, who sent for the captain of the Trinity. But of course, he was nowhere to be found. And then the order came down to me, "You're the first lieutenant." So I left the ship and I went to Commander Bloom. And I said, "Yes, sir, what would you like?" And I'm going to use his words. He said, "Rich, I want you to take that ship to sea and stop the army convoy."
right, so that was part 1.
Yes.
And I like to thank Natasha very, very much for painstakingly seeking out the sound effects to add to the story, that to give it a little color. I can't pay this lady to do this. I swear she's.
I just hope it worked, that people, got a sense of being where the interview is described. And
yes. So when we return, we're going to continue with Rear Admiral Kelshall, and this time he's going to take us further on what continued to happen on that day, and give his take on some of the performances of some people that who are around. I like to mention too, Donald Muhammad was the gunner on the ship.
Yes.
And simple man, you see, living in Indigo Martin now, but had a very significant role too. Yes. on that day, and yes. We want to thank them very much for their service. This was extreme service, as I said, to be thrust into that level of responsibility at that age must have been something. Clyde Weatherhead, somebody gave a testimony, saying that very thing, that Stanley Johnson did go to police headquarters.
And the person we spoke to actually drove him there. So
yes,
we have no reason to discredit his account.
Well, if Clyde Weatherhead heard it, I don't know if anybody else heard that. But yes, someone did give us that account too of his movement that morning. He about retired. Well, he retired as a major, Captain Spencer. How many times his name came up too?
Yes.
In the testimonies,
yes.
And unfortunately, he didn't get Lieutenant Colonel, which he deserved, and a lot of people, including his son, and you know who his son is, right? Anthony Philip Spencer, who too was denied sitting as Chief of Defense Staff. That's a whole other story, but yeah, that's his son, and so they both. He served his country well. Major Julian Spencer, and I was proud to walk the same ground that he did. He was an officer and a gentleman. He was well loved by all, and we thank him for his service. God rest his soul. The crop duster.
Yes.
Where is that crop duster? The person who flew that crop duster, is he still alive? That crop duster should be in the museum, in the 1970 section part of the museum.
Yes.
Because it
was a significant moment that people remembered, of course, because it was flying so low over Tetron, and the fact that it was shot at.
And he still managed to.
We don't even know if he made it back to where he came from safely.
Where is the crop duster? Maybe somebody could tell us, and if the pilot is still alive.
Yes, please. We heard that he came from Caroni. That was one story we heard.
Yes.
Perhaps, but if anybody knows the whereabouts of this gentleman who flew the plane, I mean, that was a brave thing to do, because I mean, you hear things fast going on, and you wanna fly a plane over Tetron where they have arms and ammunition. They could shoot you out of the sky.
You understand? So congratulations to you, whoever you are. You should have joined the Air Guard them time.
Correct.
Because you could well fly that plane.
Yes.
So good evening, Gloria, Gerald Jacobs, Roger Mohammed. Thank you very much for joining us as well, Karen. Alexis, good evening. And we're going to take a quick break. And when we return, let's get more of 506 retired Rear Admiral Richard Kelshall. We'll be back. You're listening to Our Independency.
Eye on Dependency, where every life is a biography. On the Eye, 95.5, the most influential name in radio.
Agricola Credit Union Cooperative Society Limited introduces its new and improved mortgage loan package from as low as 5% per annum. Home renovation, purchasing a home, constructing a home. Come to your credit union today. Speak to our friendly and courteous staff. See your dreams come true. All lending criteria apply. Check us at our head office, 20 Phillips Street, Port of Spain. Arima branch office, Pro Queen Street, Arima. Tobago office, Plymouth Road, Scarborough, Tobago. And our Marabella office, Pamela's Mall, Marabella. Agricola Credit Union, your very own, working for you.
Hola, my name is Elena. Well, it's actually not my real name. You don't really care, do you? All you care about is want to pay your money to my boss that I look pretty, smell nice, smile for you, and let you have good time, enjoying yourself and doing to me whatever you want to do for the money you paid. What you don't see or know is that I don't get any part of the money you paid. My boss takes all of it. I am forced to work, taking as many clients as my boss tells me to. I am beaten, made to take drugs, and I cannot leave this kind of work on my own. I am a victim of human trafficking. Please, por favor, help me.
Hi, I'm Governor Malcolm Lewis from HM Prison Wandsworth, London, and you are listening to Iron Dependency with Garth and Natasha, I95.5 FM, Trinidad and Tobago.
You're listening to Ion Dependency with Garth and Natasha. Reality radio at its best.
Thank you for staying with us. This is Ion Dependency, and we are reliving the events of the 21st of April 1970 through the eyes of members of the Coast Guard. Right now we are in the middle of retired Rear Admiral Richard Kelshall's account. The first part we heard how he was on the ship that fired across the square at Tetron, trying to get at the bunkers that eventually failed. And what we're going to hear now is part 2 of the events of that day, and let him tell you how it ended.
Right. To the person who sent the message, how many soldiers were killed?
I think it's just
one or two for the most, as far as I understand. We know about Bailey on record, but somebody said another one. We don't know, but
okay.
All we know about is Bailey. So one soldier was killed on that day. Curtis Batch, I saw your comment. We'll share it with the audience in a while. Let's go to part 2. Roy Fredericks, good afternoon. Thank you very much. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us. Let's go to part 2 now of Rear Admiral Richard Kelshall as he continues to take us on this journey. Somebody said the sound effect working, so thank you very much. Enjoy this part 2.
And I was a bit of a rebel myself too. And I said to him, why you don't go and take it? And his reply was still in my mind now. He said, I could, but you're a Trinidadian. And I'm not. And it's better that you go. I saluted him and I said, I will, sir. And then when I walked out, he called me back and he said, try and don't kill too many people. And I saluted again, went aboard the ship. I had never commanded a ship before in my life. I was the first lieutenant. This is the first time I had ever been in command of a Coast Guard ship. And I went on board, went up on the bridge, we backed off and I went out. And I never thought anything was going to happen. And then to my horror, there came the convoy coming over the hill. And his words were, stop it. So I wasn't far out. I was probably less than 100 yards from the shore. And I opened fire. I told the officer in charge of the gun to fire above the convoy and ahead of it so that nobody would be killed. Whether it is known or not, I disobeyed orders because the commander of the army was on the bridge of the ship next to me, Colonel Stanley Johnson. And I realized he had lost it and he was panicking. And I had great respect for a man in his position who was seeing his whole army mutinying and disobeying him. And his words were, kill them all. When I heard it, I said, I will not do that, sir. And I told the senior Coast Guard man on the bridge, take this man below and put him in the commanding officer's cabin. My job was to stop that convoy, and David Bloom had told me, try not to kill people, which is contrary to the orders I got from start. So I fired above and in front of the convoy. Let me tell you something about the both of us. When a normal weapon like that fires, it makes one explosion. Because of the place I was firing, the gun went off and you heard the explosion. The echo went to Little Gaspre Island and you heard another one It bounced from there onto Big Gaspre Island, and you heard a third one. So every time one round went off, it was boom, boom, boom. Very loud, very loud. And the first 3 rounds I fired, you're hearing 3 echoes coming at you. And for an army that had never been under fire, that was the deciding factor. What capped it was I came under fire. That is why I mentioned the story about the Gulf with the pirate. And there was bullets hitting the water all around the ship. And I turned to my coxswain, who was a Bajan, a very brave Bajan coxswain called Hicks. And I said to him, Swain, this is a hell of a morning for the rain to fall. And he used to stutter. And he said, that ain't no rain. That is bullet. It was an amusing thing in a very serious situation. On the hillside, one round had hit a tree, and the shrapnel came backwards to the convoy. And a piece of shrapnel passed through young Private Bailey's helmet and came out the next side, and he dropped dead on the road. And for an army that had not been in combat, that had not been under live fire, to see one of their comrades die in front of them, that was it. And the whole convoy stopped dead and reversed up the hill at speed. I felt a great sense of relief and thought, well, this is the end of this. As I was backing off, an ambulance started to come down the hill with a red light flashing and a group of people behind it. Now, all my training had taught me, you can't fire at an ambulance. An ambulance is sacred. So I stopped and I fired 2 rounds very high up, but the ambulance didn't stop this time. We had put the Coast Guard bus over the road, and we saw them shaking the bus, and bumping it to move it. And I called Captain Bloom in Stobles Bay on the radio, and I said, "A helpless here, I can't fire, there's an ambulance here, and it's coming through." And when Bloom got that message, he says, "Right, stop what you're doing and come alongside quickly." So I took the ship, went back alongside Stobles Bay. He and Mervyn Williams, who had reached back from Tetron, jumped on board, and a whole group of loyal soldiers and everybody who was in Stobles Bay piled up. And then I backed the ship up. Mervyn Williams again was the captain of the ship, except on this occasion, Captain Bloom was on board. So he was in overall command. And we went back off. And he started to fire again, but not at the ambulance, because nobody could shoot at the ambulance. Again, it was just frightening fire on the hillside. And nobody took that on, and the ambulance went through. The rest of the people, hearing the Bofors again, went back to Tetron. We think. Hindsight tells us they were placed along the roadway and the hillside with GPMGs. But the attempt to go out with a full convoy was finished. It was a very significant thing because the ambulance itself had all the spare weapons from Tetron Bay, hand grenades and whatnot inside of it, which is a crime against the Geneva Convention. You can't put weapons into a Red Cross vehicle. And that went into town. And apparently, as we heard, that convoy was going to go up to town and distribute those arms. And had that occurred, Trinidad's history would be totally different. It would have been a battle against police, army, plus there was a whole group of loyal soldiers at the Chaguaramas main gate, and that would have been a battle too. So the whole course of Trinidad's history could have changed if that convoy had got through. So my initial action on the day now had finished, and we went out with Commander Bloom. Meanwhile, the Colin Bay, which is the other ship, took all the prisoners who were the Black Power leaders to Nelson Island. So the Colin Bay was involved in that. And so I had my first command, and I did not, I'm very glad to say, kill everybody on the hillside, because we've thought about it since then. And if that weapon was swept along the face of the convoy with all those soldiers in it, there would have been a bloodbath on the hillside. So only one man died. And as a result, Private Bailey is the hero of 1970. The sight of him on the road bleeding is what made all the soldiers go back. And so the action ended there. It didn't stop there. It went on for 10 days, but the main action had been done. Everybody went back to Tetron, and they remained there for 10 days, and many things happened. The Venezuelans came. We had to go out with the ship We were so excited. The Venezuelans had a destroyer with a battalion of Marines on it. And they were coming ashore. I took the ship, put it alongside the destroyer, and Captain Bloom went on board and spoke to the captain. And when he came back, the ship turned around and went back in the Gulf. And we asked him what happened. He said the captain wanted to know how many people were in Tetron. He wanted to know how many people were in the Coast Guard. He wanted to know how many people were at the main gate and everybody in the peninsula. And Bloom told him. And he said, good, that'll take us about 20 minutes to clean up everybody. So they were going to ask who was loyal, who was not loyal. They were just coming to clean up the mess. There's a lot of high political strategy, but it was an opportunity. But Eric Williams had the foresight to tell them, we don't want no help. And they went back down in the Gulf. They never left. They stayed just over the horizon in the Gulf there for the whole 10 days. Then another Venezuelan vessel came in, and that created a complete panic in the Coast Guard because we thought that it was going to take Nelson Island and rescue the Black Power leaders. And so the people on Nelson Island went into full emergency, and our ships were placed around the island. But in fact, it wasn't so. The boat was coming through the Grand Boca and going down into Guerrilla on standby. So many different excitements came. We remained circling the two ships between Stoble's Bay and Gaspre Island for 10 days, really, until we were so tired. We had to send to the hospital to get drugs, speed, and the doctor issued us these drugs to keep us awake. But even with that, after half an hour, we were falling asleep, and we were relieving them on the bridge, and the ships were at full emergency in case anybody tried to come out. It was worse at night because you really couldn't see what was going on, and we were there and nobody slept. Everybody watched the hillside in case another attempt to come out was made. On the final day, 10 days later, we were told that Seret was going in to negotiate a surrender. But we were told something else, that if he failed, we, the Coast Guard, were to go into Tetron Bay and flatten it with both ships' guns. And we had a conference, and people were given a chance to back out and say, we don't want to be part of this. But it was so serious that Seret had a tremendous responsibility to get them to hand over the keys to the bunker, which was the signal that they had surrendered. And we had a code word between him and the Coast Guard ships, which were ready to go. And the code word came. They had two code words we were listening for on the radio. Everybody crowded around the radio. One was the washing is dirty, which meant we had to go in there and just blaze away. And the next one was the washing is clean, which means they had surrendered. And after about an hour, this voice came crackling through, the washing is clean. And that, to us, was the end of the crisis in 1970.
So there you have it. That was Kelshall's version of the events of April 21st and beyond. It's the 10 days of the mutiny. And for anybody who's interested, that piece of music that you hear at the beginning, at the end, it's called Johnny Grotto. It's a traditional sailor's tune.
Yes, and we thank Arthur Nunez for sending that for us.
Yes, correct.
Those boofers.
Mm-hmm.
Trinidad and Tobago, do you know that Manzanella Beach was used for training anti-aircraft gunners? And we saw that at the museum in Chaguaramas.
Yes.
And we saw pictures of them on the beach. Do you know our forests were used for training for World War II?
Yes.
Was it?
Yes.
And they said all the Germans, Jews, everybody who wanted to join the Allies had to pass through Trinidad and Tobago first. Mm-hmm. Incidentally, today is the 75th anniversary of the end of World War II.
Yes.
And this pick some time to do some programs, I tell you. But Delano, thanks for that information. And but do you know? Yes, our shores and our hills were used by the Allies, by the
Americans.
By the Americans, and everybody had to train here to join the Allies before they go out to war. And those anti-aircraft boofers, I mean, they're deadly. and you heard the Rear Admiral describe how it works. So no wonder a shrapnel from that, Bailey could not have survived that. No way, no how. And unfortunately, he was the one and only victim. He was a drummer at the time.
Drummer or bugler?
Bugler. Well, but that's what they call the drum corps.
Right.
So they refer to as drummers.
Okay.
And but picture those both of us going off with Luke, children involved in hearing that. You heard that. I mean, it's loud, as you heard the Admiral said. It's very loud, and for children to have to experience that very early in the morning. I have to tell you, I've been having conversations with Kenneth Luke and his brother, and for the first time, Kenneth Luke didn't know, but I heard him laugh, crack jokes and things while we talking, and I think this is what he needed to as well, to say, and remember, we still have his and his brother's interview to come, but yeah, I think this is what he needed to. God bless. I continue to ask God to bless what we're doing here and give us His strength to keep doing it, because maybe we really don't know how much we helping people out there. Venezuela came and wanted to dust off everybody and go their way, and Venezuela have the might to do that. They're military.
Yes.
So it's really excuse me. Another significant thing which I'll touch on later on, you talk about drugs to cope. Now, people have to understand that about frontline workers. Sometimes our servicemen, and I watched some videos recently, and I think some of you want to be experts like me, and I will explain what I mean by that. So let's go quick to a break, and when we return, we'll hear part 3 of Rear Admiral Kelshall's contribution. This time, it's a short one. He speaks about Rafiq Shah and how he feels about him, and if whether you agree or not, this is his take on Rafiq Shah, and also the part 4 he will speak about a brief history of himself and some of the things he would experience
in the lead up to
1970. So you're listening to Our Independency. Thank you very much for staying with us and joining us. As I said, we will share your comments in a while when we return. So stay right there. We'll be right.
This is reality radio at its best. Eye on Dependency on I-95.5 FM.
Your credit union Visa debit card is here. Agricola Credit Union launches its new international Visa debit card. For an annual fee of just $100, enjoy online shopping up to US $500. Point of sale purchases of up to $10,000 daily. No user fee at point of sale transactions both locally and abroad. No card reload fees. Get your card today. Apply now. Call or visit any of our offices at 20 Phillips Street, Port of Spain, 627-3127. Pro Queen Street, Arima, 667-7633. Scarborough, Tobago, 639-6468. And our new Marabella office, 219-7745.
Yes, girl. Online here with this weirdo named Larry. I'm getting rid of him now. Let's take a selfie. It looking good, boy. I putting it online.
Hey, I thought you say you went to the beach with your parents.
Who's you?
It's me, Larry, from online.
Hi, my name is Tanir Kane, trauma survivor and trauma-informed care expert from the state of Maryland, United States. And you're listening to Eye on Dependency, where every life is a biography on I-95.5 FM, Trinidad and Tobago.
You're listening to Eye on Dependency with Garth and Natasha. Reality radio at its best.
thank you for staying with us, and we go right back into any soldier out there have any information on French. Frenchy was from back in the day. Was he a good soldier? Was he loved, or was he one of those who people really hated and wanted to do wickedness to, and they had a chance to do it? I don't know what happened to him in 1970. Maybe somebody who knows about French could send us a message on Facebook, or you could WhatsApp me and tell me what was his relationship with the men back then. All right, so let's get into Richard Kelshall again, Rear Admiral, retired, and as he gave his take on how he felt about what happened on the regiment with regard to Trinidad and Tobago Regiment.
I've heard stories about how he got them to surrender and what he said and what he did. In fact, it affected the court martial and they were all set free. But a lot of terror, death, and an incident that changed the whole history of the army. And the man is still able to stand up in public. He became a senator, became the head of a union. He became a public figure when he should still be in prison for what he did and the responsibility for the life that he caused to be lost. He would go on the radio with men the caliber of John Joe, Roxalandi, people like Debbie Sett. We had soldiers there that could equal any in the world. And Rafiq Shah has the audacity to speak on the same program as these men. Never once apologized to his nation, never once apologized to the army, and still walking around a free man by the same democracy that tried him. He ought to keep very quiet. He never comes to me. He met me already once before on the hillside.
Well, sir, do you acknowledge some of the grouses and the discontent that was brewing in the army at the time? That is one of the things that led to the mutiny.
That's what they say. I was the same. We had other officers who went away and trained. All came back with the same mindset. We're superheroes. We're better than anybody. To meet a set of short service officers who in a large measure were totally incompetent. And we in the Coast Guard were worse. In the Navy, you go out there with an incompetent man and you're going to die. And the sailors knew that. So it is our sailors who are made up of old policemen, because the Coast Guard started from the Marine branch. And it is our steadfast, loyal, disciplined policemen who became sailors that stabilized the Coast Guard. And young people like me, an old policeman used to tell me, young boy, just shut your mouth and keep quiet, and one day you go be in command. And when you had that kind of pressure on top of you, you were disciplined. Also, we had it worse than the army officers. The Coast Guard started with a man called Loftus Peyton Jones, who was a World War II hero. He had the DSO on bar, that is 2 DSOs, for his actions in real combat. And he started the Coast Guard. And he put a ground in there. We were so scared of the terror of this man that if we were walking across the Coast Guard station, we preferred to climb over the fence and go in the bush and come round to the other part rather than him see you. Because if he saw you, he would find something wrong. And so we went through terror with this commanding officer. But he was a fair man, and he was totally Navy and totally right. And we got to realize that is the kind of leadership you follow. Somebody who may be ruthless, but he's fair. And all he was doing was trying to build a force that would be disciplined, and in fact he did. When everything was falling apart, when we had the same short service officers that Shah, LaSalle and Bazi had, we didn't mutiny. We had short service officers, some alcoholics, some gamblers. People had no business on a ship, but we did not mutiny because of the grounding in discipline. So they have no excuse really. People who mutiny are going against the very country and the establishment that formed them. And that is no way to go, and there's no justification.
Plain talk, bad manners. Excuse me. He's always known for a person like that. I think I don't know if you know somebody sent me a nickname. They used to call him Tantana Kid.
What?
Tantana Kid.
Tantana Kid.
Yeah. But again, yeah, he's a plain talker, and
those are
so
his
you heard
views.
those are his views, just like the Commissioner of Police had his views. So some people would see that way. Even some soldiers would, still view Mr. Shah in that way too. So, but that was his take. Let's go quickly to his, as he continues and wraps up his interview here on our independency and recounting 1970. This is where now he would wrap things up and he would speak about some of the men on the service. He would speak again on Stanley Johnson and Colonel Luke and Christopher and all of these people who he would have had the opportunity to witness and serve on that. All right, so once again, if you're just joining us, you're listening to Independency, and let's go to Rear Admiral, retired Richard Kelshall.
I was the in-between man. I grew up in San Fernando behind the police station in Court Street. So all I saw all day long was police. Before I became a man, law enforcement was in my head. Then I went to a school in now Pointe-a-Pierre, where Texaco was, run by Regent Oil Company. Because both my grandfathers were black men. In fact, one was a famous black man, Thomas Meade Kelshall. He became one of the first Trinidadians to be appointed to the Legislative Council in Trinidad at the time and was honored by the Queen. He got an OBE. The other grandfather I had was from St. Vincent on my mother's side, and he was the Commissioner of Prisons in St. Vincent. So there was no escape for me. There was only one way. Both of these men, my father and my grandfather, were Methodist preachers, and both of them won medals. I couldn't be any other thing but to go into the military and stick to the law. So I was fortunate. I got a hand up. But I understood racial discrimination because the school I went to was run by South Africans. And so my family was discriminated against because I had black ancestry. We were not allowed to live in one of the houses on the camp. We had to stay in San Fernando, and we were barely allowed to attend the school that had all the white children from England going to school. I knew what it was like to be different. And then when I went to Britannia Royal Naval College, let Rafiq put that in his pipe. I was beaten once a week, and my nickname was Wog. And so not only the Royal Navy strictness was on me, but the English cadets used to beat us just for the fun of beating a Negro. So I know what racial discrimination is, and half of me was with the Black Power until one day a Black Power demonstration passed my wife's house in Maraval Road, and we were all gathered in the gallery, and this frightening spectacle came along, which we weren't too scared of because of the way we were brought up and what I felt, until they reached and they saw the maid, and they started to shout from the demonstration, "Put poison in the food, kill them, they must be got rid of." And that stopped, because the one thing I didn't want was any bloodshed or death, and that they were inciting people to kill people. That turned me off. But I promise you, Trinidad has never seen a speaker like Geddes Crenshaw. Oh, no, Matangal Daga. He had audiences of 50,000 people. A leader can't control everybody below them. And it is this hardcore set of people that derailed the Black Power movement. And if they had listened to the leader, Geddes Crenshaw, the man was the most powerful speaker Trinidad has ever seen. Ever seen. I used to listen to his speeches, and he was awe-inspiring. But the violence, I couldn't sanction that. Points to note is that the Coast Guard, the captain was a white Englishman. His second in command was a man called Goldstraw, a white Englishman. And then there was a cadre of local white officers, including yours too. And not one Coast Guard man mutinied. Every single Coast Guard man reported for duty and obeyed our every orders. Why? We preached only one message. We're here to stop bloodshed. So there are many little instances that occurred that were just part of the big history. But it's you people are the only people that are interested, that are now telling the country what they should have been taught in the schools. You have now taken that. You don't know what important job you're doing to bring this history forward and let people know what happened. Let people know that there were human beings there, not military men. All military men are human beings, and you could be aggressive and kill people, or you could have compassion and say, I won't. At Christmas time in the First World War, the two sides stopped fighting and sang Christmas carols together. Military men are human, and that's what makes them a cut above the rest.
To witness the commanding officer of the regiment fall apart, how do you feel about it?
I feel great sympathy for the man. Because you know something? Rafiq Shah and his team doesn't know that he pestered the ministry in writing and himself to get better conditions for them. He, Stanley Johnson. Listen, I went out and risked my life with a pirate. It made front page in the Guardian, battle in the Gulf. The politicians never even said thank you. Nobody even told me, good job, boy. They weren't interested in the military. And that is what festered down. They did not take the interest in their military to give them what was required. And so we felt totally alone. And it's only our side, the training that Peyton Jones put into us, that held us together as a unit. Plus the fact we were very close to the police. Remember, Commander David Bloom was a former police superintendent. And so the closeness between the Coast Guard and the police was very strong.
And Commander Johnson really tried to make a change in your regiment.
He couldn't. The way the thing was formed, you created this army. There was no world war going on. There was no guerrilla movement going on. There was nothing really for them to do. Fidel Castro had the biggest army this hemisphere. But he paid them well, looked after them, gave them amenities. They got things in Cuba that other people never dreamt of because he looked after his military. This government at the time had no use for military. None at all. But Stanley Johnson knew that. And I still saw letters up to quite recently that he wrote the ministry about the conditions. He was not a brilliant military leader. He was a kind of gentleman soldier. And at that time, after a charismatic figure like Military Ret, he couldn't hold that together. He was a nice man. But I feel a lot of sympathy for him. But what that army needed was an imaginative commander who knew what to do with his men to keep them busy, to fight, to make sure they got everything. Peyton Jones was sent home. You know why he was sent home? At the end of his contract, first 3 years, he built the Coast Guard in 3 years. And he went to the ministry one day to talk to the permanent secretary. And military time, 9 o'clock was his meeting. And at 9:20, he was still sat outside. He got up, he opened the door, walked in and took the man sitting in front of the permanent secretary and pushed him out the door. And he said, "You're on military time now, sir." And that they couldn't cope with, and they sent him home right away. Colonel Christopher was another gentleman. So much a gentleman, he became a priest. And that was his character. Soft-spoken, gentleman, polite. With those young boys who thought they could rule the world, you had to have iron fists like Peyton Jones on top of you, keeping you in check and telling you what to do and giving you work to do. I, as a young midshipman, was sent 35 miles off Tobago in a launch as a young officer, the same rank as Rafiq Shah. And when I got there, I got a radio message. I said, "I'm here. There's no plane crash. Why am I here, sir?" And he came up and he says, "Oh, it's just for training and exercise. Return to base." And I had struggled all the way out there. That is the kind of training that a commanding officer is supposed to do with his young people. Keep them busy, pushing them to the limits. That never happened there. And so, if you look at both sides, they had a lot of reason to rouse. And so it was with a lot of the short service officers. They were not popular. In fact, we met a short service major coming up from down the islands on April the 21st in a boat. And we stopped him and said, "Hello, your army's mutinying up there. What are you doing out here?" And he looked up and he said, "I'm on leave." That is the caliber of officer they had now. But the main thing behind it was discipline and command. And that is most important in the military. You must have a commander that you respect and love. And Peyton Jones was the hardest, worst one. And we loved him. Because we knew his breath was Navy. And we knew if a man was like that, we would follow him. And Trinidad must start looking back, just as you are doing now, to see where it all came from and how it happened. Else, they'll repeat it again.
So, but you said something that was very significant earlier. The regiment fell out of grace with the population in 1970, but they redeemed themselves.
Yes.
In 90. Could you explain?
After the action in 1990, I got phone calls from the states of people asking how they could come and join the army. And 2 or 3 of them I took into the Coast Guard. The status and the feeling was so high for what the army did in 1990. Do you understand that during the end of that 1990 business, the whole army was surrounded television house and the Red House. And a surrender was called. And everybody was issued live ammunition and the fire discipline of the regiment. Not one round was fired by mistake. And the surrender was completed without anybody having an accidental discharge. That is discipline in the supreme. And the army got highest ranks for what they did. And if one soldier had fired one round by mistake on that morning, the rest of the rebels would pick up their weapons and start a fight, and we'd have had blood again. One of the greatest things about the army is that maneuver they pulled off there without one mistake. History could have been different, because if anybody had fired back at the army, I know who would have won. Because of the army's conduct, we have a reputation for being a stable democracy in the world, of an army that stood up for its government and didn't go berserk and didn't kill people. Although Abu Bakr and his men killed 27 Trinidadians and burned down police headquarters, we still didn't go berserk and kill people. It was good leadership. You had Joe Theodore in command there, and some very good officers. Selwyn Derrick was in the Hilton with me, where the army had established their headquarters. So the army redeemed itself in full. The debt was paid in full. But that man Shah can't come out now and not be sorry for what he did and what he did to his army. Cannot. And nobody must let him forget it, because the army would have been streaks ahead now. Well, that's the same vein in which your program is, and you're changing the culture. Continue. You're doing a tremendous job. Don't take any basket from nobody. You're doing a fantastic job, and it takes a lot of courage to do it. Press on and make Trinidad and Tobago understand what military is.
That was the man, Admiral Richard Kelshall, giving it all he's got, and imagine he was busy that day. Thank you very much, Admiral, for speaking your truth and being as frank as you always are. Thank you very much, Delano. Thanks very much once again, and we've learned a lot once again this evening. Let's now, the internet giving some problems, folks, so we're trying to give everybody their fair share. I always feel when people take the time and comment, we must read it. Funny story, this is from Colonel Carter. I grew up in D-Bay Long Circle and spent a lot of time in the forested hills around D-Bay. My mother used to tell me to be careful because there are gorillas in the bush. Little did I know that she meant gorillas. Well, he thought was Gorillas.
As in the animals.
And the animal, but she meant gorillas, as in, well, you heard about the gorillas and the guy here and the guys. I didn't realize that some of my friends in the village had fathers who had deserted and were hiding out in the hills around D-Bay for some time after 1970. From Lady Luke, she sent something about French. Could you pull it up? School. Helena said, retired Brigadier Kelshall, thanks for speaking your truth.
Oh, yes. Kenneth Luke says RSM French was a gentleman, but a serious gentleman. He was in the cadet force when I was in the cadets and went to army as it was formed. He was known as an extremely disciplined soldier who had served in the Allied forces in the Africa campaign. So he was heavily experienced and a true warrior in every sense of the word. I went to school with two of his boys, and it was clear they revered this man.
Colonel Carter once said also that could scroll up. This thing real confusing. Scroll up.
And we lost it, just like that.
Right, Manzanilla was the U.S. Jungle Training School. Right. School again. Even at the Military Museum, folks, we got to experience. They have simulated situations. You get to fight to hear what a submarine sounds like. Could you hear? You get to find what a submarine sounds like when you're inside of it. I get to see a periscope from a submarine. All of that down there at the museum, And Kenneth Luke asked, did you know that Tetron was a World War II submarine base as well? School up. Roger Carter again says, Folks, let's take some of your calls in the meantime. 622-3937. We're running out of time and we want to get some of you in.
Someone, Helena, asked if we'll hear from Donald Mohammed.
Donald Mohammed, well, he's not really a man likes to speak, Donald, but he was the gunner. And as I said, simple man, simple looking man, very quiet, unassuming person. But, you know, yeah, he was the man, the youngster that blazed the hills. Good evening.
Good afternoon, my partner and his wife there.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Listen, I know from the time I hear LaSalle talk, sure, I know he wasn't fooling me. I grew up in town, you know. I grew up around Belmont, Lavante area, Nelson Street, all that kind of area. So when all these things started to take place, we don't know what's going on already. So I want to know what they was coming in town to do. And yes, there was a submarine place in Chagrama there called Tarico. Down inside there, they still have the gate there. Well, there's a cable gate there in case a sub get inside, it gets trapped inside that gate there. I remember Father carrying gravel and things to that house inside there. And down there was a cable in case a sub come around, they pull a cable and he gets there, he couldn't come out inside there at all.
Right.
I went inside the sub already. And that's the boy, Timbodoro or somewhere there. Yeah, come up and went inside. Just show the top of it is big inside, like I don't know what. But it looks small on top because only the trap door come up, you know, in order for they were taking in food and stuff like that.
Right.
And we had get a chance. My father was the kind of person who used to know, he used to work in the base. And you know a few people, so we get down inside there, just inside before you close the trap door. But I know that the guy wasn't telling us something right, because who tell you to come in town and you say kill your black, you want to kill black brothers and things. Don't use that trick on we to test food. We know what he was coming down to do, but he failed. He failed because he found out he might have failed and what he may have met when coming through the gate in Chagrama there. And who he may have met in town, and then he's scared for his life too. But he wasn't fooling nobody. He wasn't fooling nobody. He should have been in jail. He get away by a chance of reading a book or some kind of stupidness.
All right.
All right. And we have a message from Commodore Anthony Franklin, who you heard on part 2 of our series. He says, congratulations for bringing the significant role of the TTCG in 1970 to the knowledge of the public. TTCG was known as the Silent Service. That's why the story of 1970 is now being told through your good work. Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome, sir. You're welcome. Roger Carter also says the Gulf of Paria was where all the fuel convoys heading to the war in Europe and Africa would muster to cross the Atlantic, so the German submarines would hunt around Trinidad during that time. Brenda says, let me just read one more before I take a call. Brenda Luke says, when we moved to PP3, the large submarine nets.
And we have someone on the line.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, guys. Good evening, Tasha. Long time.
Good evening.
Oh my gosh! Wow, you all had me like sitting in one spot. If I'd move, I feel I missed something.
Yes, you would have missed something.
Yeah. You know, I'm asking. I don't know. Do you all have these song bites and stuff like that? Package Tasha. I love the sound effects. I mean, it really brought everything alive. I tell you, I didn't even want to move. You know, and maybe just a suggestion though for the children when they go back out to school, maybe you can do this again sometime and have a quiz based around it for them, because I mean this is a lot of history, a lot of information here. So if we have the packages where it's up for sale or something, you know, we as the listeners would support.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Brenda, when we moved to PP3, the large submarine nets used to string interference in the Gulf were in large piles. They used these submarine nets to string they found in piles in various warehouses, and the giant round buoys and their cement anchors were eventually moved to Deans Bay Carnage. I think Bain bought them a scrap iron. You kidding me? Scrap iron. That should be in the museum.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Hey, good evening, folks.
Yes.
I really must commend you all. And I want to suggest that you all try to expand that whole program so that we could get all the different perspectives of the 19th century era to be properly recorded for educational purposes. They always have stories around about, people not getting the truth. But from where I sit, I really appreciate his perspective. I agree with him that the Army redeemed itself in 1990. And at another time, maybe depending on if you have other sessions, I would want to introduce a particular perspective from the Dugumartin side of the hills. Certain activities that took place on the Dugumartin side during the 10 days that he spoke about, because it really made me realize what was taking place on the other side of the hill.
You mean by soldiers?
Yeah, because I recall a soldier in particular. I can't recall his name, but I know he was from the Virgin Islands, I think. He spoke with an American accent. They used to call him Yankee Boy. He used to drive a red Triumph. And I remember him being arrested on my street at evening because there was always an allegation. I used to see him, he used to make signals to him in his life. So that's the eagle in the night. And I remember the ASP Pizzat who died recently. His father was an inspector at the time, and he was leading a team of people who came to arrest him. And other things that I'm aware of, but not in the sense that it would add to all the story, but it's just my perspective from seeing what the soldiers do I do, how they used to conduct themselves in a kind of indisciplined way.
Yeah.
And it's so that the part about indiscipline in the Army, I could attest to that because some of the soldiers who used to live among us were very indisciplined, and they were kind of radical, and they were involved to some extent because during the 10 days, they were the people who the police were sort of harassing and trying to arrest and round up and what have you. So there was some connection to those fellas outside and what the Rear Admiral spoke about.
Thank you, man.
I'll leave it there. Yeah, very good show.
Delano, you all get some Coast Guard nicknames for me, because I'm not giving me real names here. Let me read some quick. Marvel, Beak, Ben Chassis, Vols.
Ben Chassis.
I remember Scrappy, Fifi, Bump, Marvelous, Bio. But we have Cheros, Raja, Mal, Pony, Chin, Skull. No, Mr. Amber, I leave my glasses home, my boy. So I
pressure,
Yes, pressure from your head. Joe Ball.
Yeah, people on the line.
Natty, Piggy. Good evening. Hello, good evening. Did you like it? You had to get some nicknames from Coast Guard from my friend. Rosa Carter says Trinidad because a long distinguished military history. Good evening, caller.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
515 speaking.
515.
Yes, sir.
Patrick Andre.
Right. Evening. Listen, I just want to throw light on a couple things. One is when the Admiral spoke about renounce to the Venezuelan pirates, it was Richard, myself, and a seaman called the Cesar Singh, three of us. And that was the first time we were under live fire, three of us.
Right.
It also prepared me as well as the Admiral for what was to come.
Yeah.
Right. So that was one. The second thing is when the Defense Force doctor came on board the vessel to hand out the drugs. He was brought there by the same senior Coast Guard officer who I saw up at Crow's Nest and sort of liaising with the mutineers, and I decided not to take the drugs. And before long, everybody on the ship started to get drowsy and all that when they took the drugs. And I didn't take it. Because I said, no, I am not going to take these things at all. Something wrong here.
But wasn't it supposed to keep them up?
Keep them up? They put them to sleep.
Oh, God.
Yes, I saw that. Okay. Yes. The next thing, there are a couple of things I want to just raise as question. Now, the issue I raised with the pantsman that had the SLR, loaded SLR, that ran into my roadblock, I want to know, as a trained Sandhurst officer, you in control of a mutiny or whatever it is you want to call it, are you going to put untrained men, hand them a loaded SLR and tell them we're heading into Port-of-Spain? That does not speak to me of discipline or responsibility. The second thing is the ambulance with the body of Private Bailey, and that had a lot of arms and ammunition and grenades and all that, was destined for the block as one mutineer described in an interview, which I saw on TV. And then the third thing is they keep claiming there was condoning of the actions by the CEO of the regiment, and that is what got them off. But my question is, who was the commanding officer of the Trinidad and Tobago Regiment at the time the mutiny occurred? It was Stanley Johnson. It was not John Farrell.
Right.
So I could never see, that was a whole part. That whole military tribunal, the court martial, and everything else that went after was a big part. So that my view as a layman is that if you are claiming condoning, it has to be who was the CEO at the time the crime was committed.
Yeah, I too asked myself the question too.
But if he wasn't on the scene or wasn't able to be reached by anybody, then somebody had to step into his shoes because he was absent.
No. Christopher was the second in command.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
Derek was already fired from the military.
Right. Thanks a lot, my friend. Thank you. Right, so we got a response from someone on French. Kenneth Luke says, RSM French was a gentleman, but a serious gentleman. He was in the cadet force when I was... Huh? Oh, you read that?
I did.
Oh, sorry. Okay, right. Well, yes, so somebody else might have another comment on French.
Let's go back to the line.
But let's go back to the lines quickly. Good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening. Hackett.
No disrespect meant. But my question is, to what purpose and to whose benefit or to what benefit is this story being rehashed?
It is to the country's benefit. For those who weren't there, for those who weren't there, for those who are interested in our history. I, for one, as a soldier, never knew all of this. There are people who appreciate very much what we're doing. That's the reason for it.
That's the reason for it?
Yes. Our independency, we try to educate the public as much as possible on this and other issues. And
as it was the 50th anniversary of those events in 1970, we thought...
Oh, I was there. I was in the mix of it.
Okay, so then you don't understand the purpose?
I don't understand the purpose, no.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your...
all right.
Your comment. Yeah, thank you very much. When I got in Natasha, what about the reason for the Black Power movement? Had it not been done to... Do you think blacks in this country would have rich, fine society? Well, we have a number of views on that, but when we interview a couple of enough people who are still alive, you will find out from them. Again, it was a time in our history, and there are those who appreciate what we're doing. And callers, I hope you all appreciate what we're doing because some of these things you would not have known.
Correct.
Did you know about the Coast Guard and the extended role that they played? You see, if they didn't play their role, caller, you might not have been able to call us now.
We would be telling a very different story.
You'll be telling
right
a
now.
different story. So that's the purpose. But thank you very much for your call anyhow. Good evening.
Hello, Dad. Good evening, Natasha.
Good evening.
Asking the question again. We're making the statement really to it. When Eric Williams makes speech that democracy, well, it's about 11 democracy, different thing of democracy. He says it's for people to get work in public and private, and he repeat in private. Now that was in 1962, right? For the election, for independence. Now in 1970, they were saying that black people are getting jobs in private, like in bank and different things like that. Is it black people? It is the complexion if it's too dark, because if you're fair skinned, that means you would have get passed, because if you're black, you stay in the back. Is that or just that? Because I understand, according to, I didn't know that by that time, I had about 8 years at that time, right? So this man, Freddie Ferrer, that black people was already employed in the public service.
All right, thanks for your input.
I don't think they were referring to persons employed in the public service necessarily. They were talking about mostly young people who were unemployed, largely unemployed in that time. And there was a lot of racial discrimination going on as well, which is why there were the joint marches between Africans and Indians.
Thank you very much. Richard Yewood said, why did the authorities kill Beverly Jones? And what was this woman and the likes of Shah was fighting for? Well, as I said,
we'll try to answer those questions
yes, as we go
through
along.
the testimonies that we will receive. Hello,
Good evening.
Good
Hi,
evening.
darling. Good evening. Happy Mother's Day.
Same to you, ma'am.
How you doing?
Good.
I tell you, I feel relieved this evening.
Say again?
I feel relieved.
Could you speak up a bit?
I feel relieved
Uh-huh.
of what information we got. You remember I keep telling you they're lying to you? This is Papa Oscar.
Go ahead.
Right? And I feel relieved because plenty of that information I know. And that's why I asked the question. I'm not hearing about Donald Mohammed. Because Donald Mohammed was part, And then they started to, Kelshall started to explain you something. But don't let nobody make you not wanting to continue because, as you say, there's a lot of children do not know this. I didn't realize my big son, 45, didn't know much about this from me. He knew little things. Like when they were carrying him down with the boat, down to Nelson Island, when they picked him up in the morning, as I told him, my husband always talk about it. And just recently in church, a fellow from you they came to church and bring a set of stories that were not true. And I was going to post them, right?
Thank you very
much.
much.
He told him,
Yeah.
He told him, if you remember the young sailor and the young policeman, he was standing between. And you say, if you jump, what he would do? And he tell you, he'll empty every bullet on a jump, and you keep quiet. You know him, Nunez, right? Nunez keep quiet. And when you remind him again, Nunez keep quiet in our church. They are telling us lies. They're not telling us they have bring poor people, black people with business to nothing in this country. They're not telling you that. They raid this place. And you remember Mr. Kelshall talking about the march and from his mother-in-law home and how what they were telling you to kill them, poison them and things. That is what they would do. They don't know. They can't say what they were fighting for. Dr. Beverly Jones and them were got killed. They can't tell you what they was out here doing. Why? Why they were doing this? Raiding banks, raiding holding, doing all these things.
All right, well,
we will have the answers to those questions
for you, and
in
you'll
due
hear
course.
from them in due course. Who were robbing banks? Beverly Jones Shah. To Cheryl says, also earlier, it's to the military benefit. The caller was ignorant in my view. He doesn't understand the purpose and what's history. Michelle, I'm very happy for this program. I was just 14 at the time. Much thanks to all that education. Continue the great work. I thank you all very much too for appreciating what we're doing. We are hearing from people who are still alive. That's so unfortunate. That is why the military museum. That is why the military museum is not really a thing with us, because we just don't like
to revisit history.
We don't like to follow up on. You like to follow up on our history. You don't like to appreciate what. Let's take one more. Good evening.
Yes, good evening, Dr. Natasha. How are you all doing?
Good evening, sir. Good.
Great program as usual. I listened almost every Sunday evening. First time caller, by the way.
Thank you.
The guy who called just before Larry and asking what was his purpose, and I was wondering, well, what is his purpose for asking a question like that? Because it's history, Trinidad history. Yeah. You understand? It's so simple. People try to be critical. They don't have a point to prove. But nevertheless, you should have asked him when he said he was present, like he was there. Get some information from him, what he know about it. You probably missed a mark there by not, prying into him to find out how much he know. Anyway, but you are doing a great job. All the topics you all bring is very interesting and edifying to us in the public here. Thank you all very much for that. And we'll take care and continue the good work you're doing.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Folks, I'm sorry, but we just had to take one more. We have to go because we have the Anglican boys coming up. So I see you all, but again, we will be here next week. Please God spare life to continue the education. Good evening.
Hello and good evening, Gat. Good evening, Natasha.
Good evening.
Gat, great program again. This is Derek here, man.
Hey, Derek Valley. How you doing, my brother?
Boy, I only caught a piece of it. Unfortunately, I was on the road and my daughter was in the car, and and she was glued. We were riveted there listening to, it's Colonel Kelshall and the,
Admiral.
Admiral Kelshall. It's like this information, as I've always said to you, I want it. I want it. I need it. I need it. I need to sit down, and go through this thing, because it's important for us, Trinidad and Tobago. I have so much information on American history.
Thank you.
Thank you. Because it's there, it's chronicled and so forth. This is so great, and I pray that the ministries will continue to give you all the support, because it's needed. People, you're lost if you don't know your history, right? So keep up the good work. But as I say to you, brother, I call in here. I need this. All right.
All right.
Take care.
Thank you. All right, folks. That's where we have to leave it. I thank you very, very much. Good night. My dad was in the first batch in the Coast Guard and listening to Mr. Kelshall brought back many memories. Jacqueline, thank you very much. Linda Pollard Lake, and thank you for hooking up with the folks. We're gonna call them and get their account. We have a long way to go, folks. We have to put all the pieces of this puzzle together so that when we finish, we can package. We got so many ideas, but remember the Military Museum in Chaguaramas. If you have not been there, when it's open again, please go. I beg of you, visit. To the PS of National Security, I know you're a history buff. If you have never been to that museum, please pay it a visit. And the Minister of National Security, please pay it a visit. You will not regret it. When it's open, carry your children. Make sure it's just to the next door to the playground that you all go. Please, and they need help. Linda Kelshall needs help to keep that place going.
Yes.
And we hope that she gets it. It's a beautiful walk through history. Imagine seeing a section of that where she said bombs fell on this bunker that they won. But to find the men, some of the men were buried in it, and you only seen their boots alone. So you see cement, and you're just seeing boots hanging out of that cement. And
a lot of creative stuff.
It's a lot of creative stuff. And then you climb up and you could see the bombs dropping. There's a little simulation thing where they had that firefight going on with lots of anti-aircraft weapons firing, and it is amazing. That's ours. And I'm telling you, if she's ready to give up that museum, she just had to put it on eBay. And every American or European collector worth their salt will come to Trinidad and buy every single artifact from that museum. We don't want that. We need to put our efforts on bringing that museum
up to standard. And preserving a lot of the stuff that they have in there.
Oh my God. That is all I have to say.
It's amazing.
Oh my God. Thank you so much, people. We've got to go. Thank you all for those who contributed on Facebook. Yes. And we will save your comments and we'll share them again next Sunday. God spare life. And love you. Thank you for wanting to be a part of history and this journey that we embarked on here. Natasha,
thank you very much.
Thanks again for all your hard work. We gotta go. Anglican Voice is up next. Take care, folks. Be safe. Remember what the Prime Minister said this weekend. Please try and follow. All right. God bless you all.
Good night.
Good night.
Eye on Dependency, where every life is a biography. On the Eye, 95.5, the most influential name in radio.
The #1 name in talk, I-95.5 FM Talk, Trinidad and Tobago. I-95.5 FM, the most influential name in radio. Talk, news, sports. I-95.5 FM Trinidad and Tobago, covering all news, anywhere, anytime. Credible news, breaking news, groundbreaking talk. We are the leader in news and current affairs. I-95.5 FM. I-95.5 FM, the #1 radio station for news, sports, and talk. I-95.5 FM Trinidad and Tobago, the most influential name in radio.
Every Sunday, 8 to 9 p.m., the Anglican Voice is on I-95.5 FM. Join us as we discuss topics and events involving the Anglican community and the Anglican Church in the Diocese of Trinidad and Tobago. The Anglican Voice, every Sunday from 8 to 9 p.m. on I-95.5 FM.
Good evening, Trinidad and Tobago, and welcome to this Sunday's edition of the Anglican Voice on I-95.5 FM. I'd like to thank you for joining us in studio. For those of you who may be joining us for the first time, this program is brought to you by the Incorporated Trustees of the Anglican Church in the Diocese of Trinidad and Tobago. We air every Sunday evening from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. on I-95.5 FM. My name is Mark Haynes, and I am proud to be here with you this evening as we extend Mother's Day greetings to all mothers in Trinidad and Tobago. Whether you're a biological mother, whether you're a mother figure, whether you're an auntie, whatever it is, and even to those fathers that serve roles as both mother and father. Yes, single fathers who is holding up that responsibility. Happy Mother's Day to you all as well. May God continue to richly bless and keep all of you as you share in this blessed ministry that God has sent. Now, originally I was going to share my views in terms of some scriptural references of mothers and Mother's Day. However, the confirmation class of the St. Mary's Anglican Church in Tacarigua, confirmation class of the St. Mary's Anglican Parish in Tacarigua, which spans St. Mary's in Tacarigua, St. Aidan's in Aruca, St. Philip in Lupino, the Church of the Transfiguration Maloney Mission in Maloney, and the Urupun Mission in Urupun. So you guys please stay tuned in. Also on tonight's show we will have the service for the 6th Sunday after Easter, which is celebrated by Chief Celebrant the Right Reverend Claude Berkeley, the Assistant Bishop of the Anglican Church in the Diocese of Trinidad and Tobago. So we ask you to please sit back, listen, join in, worship, and pray while we have all these aspects. So before we go to the service with Bishop Claude, we are joined by the confirmation class of St. Mary's Parish in Tacarigua. God richly bless you. Happy Mother's Day to all mothers, and may He continue to bless you and your family, and you grow closer together and united by the power of the Holy Spirit, and also you are kept strong and covered by the blood of Jesus Christ. God bless you.
Happy Mother's Day to all mothers and to those who play the role of a mother at St. Mary's Anglican Church and the wider Anglican Diocese. The Bible reveals that a mother's role is to encourage, nurture, and train those around them to live a mature, effective, and God-honoring life. Today, we are pleased to share some memorable Bible quotes about mothers.
Chapter 17, verse 15 to 16. Genesis chapter 17, verse 15 to 16. God said to Abraham, "As for Sarai your wife, you shall not call her Sarai, but Sarah shall be her name. I will bless her, and moreover, I will give you a son by her. I will bless her, and she shall give rise to the nations of kings of people shall come from her."
Exodus chapter 20, verse 12. Honor thy father and thy mother, so that you may live long in the land that the Lord your God has given you. Proverbs chapter 29, verse 15.